This is Doctor Talks, real talk from real doctors on the issues that matter to you most.
So welcome back to the Reversing Heart Disease Naturally Summit. I'm super stoked today to be interviewing Dr. Kahn, who is the originator host of this and who graciously asked me to co-host with him, which has been a joy and a pleasure. And we're going to talk to him and pick his brain about everything cardiology. Thank you so much for being here.
Excited to work with you and all this great audience. Thank you.
Thank you. And we could talk for hours and days about all the things that people need to know that you know in order to help prevent them from being victim to cardiac disease. We are going to talk about advanced glycation end products, also called AGEs. What the heck is that? A lot of people are wondering. So let's start there. What the heck are AGEs?
Yeah, I have to say, I was in medical school a long time ago. I learned nothing on this topic, and I don't think medical students currently learn about this either. But I was blown away about a decade ago, maybe 12 years ago, when this topic was thrust upon me during a variety of lectures. And actually, currently, there's 19,000 peer-reviewed articles, which is a huge body of data that everybody viewing this summit should be able to say advanced glycation end products are critically important, or the abbreviation AGEs are critically important, but I've never heard of them before. And you're the expert on metabolic health, and we talk about trying to control our blood sugar and keep it under control. But what's so bad about your blood sugar being up? We don't really connect those dots often. We just assume it's not good. But in the 1970s, a team of researchers at Rockefeller University and Mount Sinai Medical Center, both in New York, identified something really simple we use every day in clinical practice, that an elevated blood sugar will attach to proteins and alter, modify, and actually make them not as effective in their job, whatever they're doing, as those that don't have a sugar coating to the protein. And they established a test back then, 40, 50 years ago, called hemoglobin A1C. How sugar-coated is your hemoglobin inside your red blood cells? And that's become a routine test. But it's an abnormality, which is why the high levels worry us as clinicians and the low levels are more favorable. The more sugar combines with protein, and occasionally it combines with fats, the more it alters them. And the end result is something called the development of advanced glycation end products, a family of chemicals. They all have challenging names, methoxyglycol and CML, but a family of chemicals that does harm. And so we have to know about this family of chemicals with 19,000 scientific articles behind them for the past 50 years. Not just that that's why the blood test hemoglobin A1C was developed and is so important, but for a whole range of our risks for heart disease, dementia, cancer, diabetes, metabolic problems. So let's go a little deeper into that for sure.
Yeah, for sure. So how do they form? You said they attach, but is there a specific process by which they form?
Yeah, without geeking out too much, there's something called enzymatic reactions. Probably some of you had biology classes remember the word enzymes. So you can have sugar attached to something because an enzyme's involved. This is not that. This is a passive combination. It's called non-enzymatic linking, but it'll change your proteins. And what it does to your proteins, it makes them stiff. Well, why does that matter? What's in the wall of your artery? Proteins. What's in your facial skin? Proteins. What's in your brain cells? Proteins. What's in all the organs of your body's proteins. And if you sugarcoat them with this reaction from having a high blood sugar, the very thing you teach we don't want, and we want to adjust our diet and use continuous glucose monitors and various approaches, is we want to avoid excessively allowing sugar to do this damaging impact. So we can actually now explain the reason you don't want a high blood sugar is because it will promote advanced glycation end products, which cause tremendous inflammation throughout the body, chronic inflammation, tremendous oxidative stress through the body, which is another way to damage cells that you don't want damaged. And finally, to promote stiffening. Stiffening, one of the hallmarks of aging, just look at an elderly person and ask them to bend over and pick up something. Our tissues get stiff, our collagen gets stiff, our tendons get stiff. And all of that relates to years and years chronically accumulating this family of chemicals we call ages. And, it's actually anti-aging to have a low amount of advanced glycation end products, and it's pro-aging to have a lot.
So you mentioned hemoglobin A1C is a measure of how much that's happening in a specific protein called hemoglobin, and it's related to blood sugar and all that. And are there others? Are there other tests for it?
Yeah. Well, a really good question I ask myself is, why is nobody talking about this to any frequent degree? Why do you not see the cover of Newsweek or the magazine or newspaper article or talking with your doctor in an annual visit? Why is nobody mentioning this? And that has been the challenge of measuring it. We know it happens. We've got all this scientific data. It's in the cardiology literature everywhere. It's in the diabetes literature everywhere. It's in the cancer and dementia literature everywhere. Why don't we hear about it? Because it is difficult to measure. In research studies, you can measure the levels of some of these chemicals, advanced glycation end products. But there is not a clinically available easy blood test to say, whoa, my blood levels are sky high, and ask the question why. And we've talked about one way we develop advanced glycation end products. I want to be sure we do talk about the second way because it's fascinating. But it turns out in about the last decade, there is a machine. It has a simple name called the Age Reader. And it's about as big as a loaf of bread. And all you do is you rest your bare skin of your arm on a sensor, and a number appears. And it turns out that is measuring the concentration chronically up to that day of how much some of these advanced glycation end products are in the tissues. And there's a couple hundred research studies that have used this machine made in the Netherlands. We've had it in my clinic in suburban Detroit now for a number of months, and it is incredible that we can have this conversation now. If you don't have a test, it's pretty hard to have the conversation. So we're testing and finding people very abnormal. And sometimes we're surprised we're testing people I would have expected to be rather in a danger zone, and they're not. So one more tool in the toolbox to help prevent chronic disease.
Absolutely. And you mentioned a second way. I want to hear about that.
Well, the second way, I want everybody to listen, because this is not something you're going to hear at most summits. It turns out you developed a high level of these chemicals that you don't want from the two pathways. We talked about the chronically elevated blood sugar. We can call that insulin resistance, pre-diabetes, or just type 1 or type 2 diabetics. They will be challenged by an excess production of stiffening throughout the body, premature aging, and advanced glycation end products. But the other fascinating thing that has been shown for about 20 years, it's the way we cook, even maybe more so than what we cook. So a professor, again in New York, developed a method to test foods and then to test how we cook our foods. Just think about caramelizing onions. They start out white and moist, but by high heat, they turn brown. That's called the Maillard reaction, and a chemical name that's about 100 years old now, Dr. Maillard. And it turns out anything we cook, from a slice of toast to a breast of chicken to a slice of bacon to even tofu and a portobello mushroom, high, dry heat. Think of a barbecue, think of a griddle. Think of turning your toaster oven on and having something really get toasted. High, dry heat will dramatically change whatever food that is into a high advanced glycation end product food. And people thought it didn't matter until it was identified that those chemicals in the chicken breast, those chemicals in the tofu slice, do get absorbed. The advanced glycation end products get absorbed from our food into our bloodstream, and they will directly cause this whole process of inflammation, oxidative stress, stiffening of our blood vessels, our facial appearances, our collagen throughout our organs, and lead to chronic disease. So as we say, it's almost how we cook more than necessarily what we're eating, although The advantage, though, is in the research that Dr. Vlasara in New York did, plant-based foods, with the exception of roasted nuts and sometimes like grilled tofu, plant-based foods are naturally very low in AGEs, fruits and vegetables and grains. They're very low. And even if you do toast or roast or barbecue a portobello mushroom, you'll get AGEs, but you're getting relatively low amounts. The ones that really are prone are chicken, bacon, red meat, but for sure, cheeses, certain cheeses. Anytime you got protein and fat in a food, think of a hamburger, and then you will grill it or barbecue it or roast it, you will create an insane amount of AGEs. So the plant-based diet is naturally protective, both from keeping our blood sugar lower if we do it right as you teach, and from actually the concentration and the cooking method. It's a big advantage to eat whole food plant-based to keep our AGEs down. And now we can test it in the clinic.
Interesting, interesting. So is acrylamide fall into this? Is that one of the advanced?
Now, acrylamide chemicals are a different pathway that usually red meat comes up as a topic as promoting cancer, but acrylamide is a separate production than advanced glycation end products. And it's important to point out, this is not the only pathway that favors, what do we know about the biochemistry of whole food plant-based eating that favors lower rates of heart disease, dementia, and diabetes and cancer? There's actually a multitude of them, but probably the largest science is for the avoidance of high levels of advanced glycation end products. Dr. Vlas has actually published these tables. And if you really want to calculate it, you want to keep your AGEs per day under 8,000 units. And boy, if you eat salads and soups and lentils and all the good food we eat, you're not going to have any problem with that. But if you're a meat eater, if you're a chicken breast lover, if you like to barbecue, you're going to be challenged. Just a small 3 slices of bacon grilled for 5 minutes will exceed the entire day's suggested allowance. And a lot of people eat a lot more bacon than that. Bacon is actually number 1 on the list of high AGE foods.
Interesting, interesting. And there's a lot of people out there promoting eating bacon all day long as a food thing. Okay, so you mentioned hemoglobin A1C, right, as one of the ones we know how to measure. You mentioned the arm. Are there any other ways? Are there any, like fructosamine? Does that fall into that category?
No, there are no other readily available ways right now to get an idea how much of these chemicals, but you can assume, and you can read the research. The seminal paper was published in 2010 listing 500 foods. And for example, and I'm not promoting chicken eating, but if you take a breast of chicken and put it in a soup, which is not dry heat, that's moist, lower temperature cooking, you get very few AGEs developing. And if you take the same chicken breast and throw it on the barbecue, you're getting a tremendous amount. So you can calculate and examine what's my diet like, and what am I probably doing to my AGEs level. And if you have these diseases, early memory problems, you've struggled with blood sugar and weight, and certainly if you're a heart patient or don't want to be a heart patient, you want to gravitate to these lower AGEs food. But again, legumes, whole grains, if you can tolerate them, fruits and vegetables will always put you, except for maybe roasted nuts are a little high and grilled tofu is a little high. You know, traditionally tofu was in a miso soup. Again, moisture is your friend. Marinades are your friend. A lower heat cooking is your friend. A crock pot is your friend. Commercial brand, an Instant Pot is your friend, because it's all about moisture, lower temperature cooking. So again, raw food, that's your friend. You know, a big salad is going to always be a winner in avoidance of advanced glycation end products. And I'm telling you, cardiologists should be talking about this. Absolutely. We're just not grabbing onto this, a huge amount of data.
Yeah, but what you said is very interesting, and it's a way to transition people into a lower AGEs diet who are not ready yet for a plant-based diet, is to, instead of roasting your chicken or barbecuing your chicken, put it in a pot and steam it, or make it part of a stir fry in a pot, right? Or put it in the Instapot and make it part of a diet or a meal that has lots and lots of veggies mixed in it. So it's ways that people who aren't ready to go all whole foods plant-based, that they can gradually transition to a less dangerous version of including some of those meats in there.
Yeah, I agree. And again, none of us are promoting that you start eating chicken, but there is one book written on a low age diet, but it's a very animal heavy book because it's being written for the public at large. And
Yeah.
that is what they teach because they're not teaching what you and I teach, which is move over. You almost don't need a low age diet book for whole food plant-based diets because it's naturally going to be very, very low, which is just wonderful. And just one more reason you've heard about the environment, you heard about animal rights, you've heard about, reversal of diabetes and reversal of heart disease from Dr. Ornish and Esselstyn, but keeping your age content of your diet low, if you're striving to look good as you age, feel good as you age, be able to bend over and put your socks on as you age, it all relates to both what we eat and how we prepare our food. Fascinating.
Love it. Love it. Love it. So, assuming somebody comes into your office and you put their arm on this machine and you find they're off the charts ages, can that be reversed? Or are you just coaching them on to how to, stabilize it and not increase it?
Yeah, it's a great question, and it can be reversed. Not in a day. These toxic chemicals, and we don't know any good news about these chemicals. There's nothing really an advantage. We don't want them in our body, but they accumulate over months to years. So the number on the age reader will go down in a few months. It won't go down by tomorrow.
Okay.
It's not like monitoring your blood sugar on your finger prick or a continuous glucose monitor. And you can do it with education about the diet, with moist, lower heat cooking or raw foods as a major staple of your diet, and plant-based choices as a major staple or only staple of your diet. There are a few supplements. The most studied one is a variant of B vitamin. Everybody's heard of thiamine, B vitamin. Well, there's a modified version called benfotiamine. I learned about this
Mm-hmm.
about 12 years ago. benfotiamine. And there actually are provocative studies. I'm having some early memory issues, and I either take a placebo or I take benfotiamine, a very safe, inexpensive vitamin, for the next 12 months, and I repeat my memory tests. That's actually been done as clinical science. It improved the memory capability of a human. We're not talking about, in this case, rat science. There's some great data that I'm a diabetic and I go for some testing of my artery function and endothelial function. And I either get put on placebo or benfotiamine for 6 months or 12 months. It will improve endothelial function. In fact, it'll improve it pretty readily. So that is a tool besides dietary education that we use in my clinic. It's safe, it's inexpensive, it's available, and it is backed by science. It's the last vitamin you'll ever hear in most conversations, and maybe it ought to be up there as one of the first, really.
Yeah. And it's one that I use a lot in my clinical practice as well. And it also affects the gut. We have a lot of people who are having leaky gut issues, and there have been studies that show that it can help in the repair of the lining of the gut. So it is underused, and it's hard to say. That's kind of why you say it very well. Very good.
I've been practicing.
Practicing it.
Just until I got this age reader in my clinic, it was hard to discuss. It still is a little hard. I'm working on some handouts and brochures, and education is the key. I mean, you didn't hear about benfotiamine and ages and forks over knives. We just heard about the benefits of a whole food plant-based diet. But
Right.
it's just one massive amount of reason that, as you eat to reverse your heart disease through the giants that we had a chance to interview, you'll be reversing multitude risks to your health.
Yes.
And it's why the blue zones of longevity are so plant forward. And again, what isn't, plant-based in many of the blue zones? Soups with a little bit of animal product, casseroles with a little bit of animal product, but moist, lower heat cooking.
Yeah.
Yeah, none of the blue zones really feature, barbecuing, grilling, and high dry heat cooking as a staple
Right.
of what they do, maybe on a celebration or a festival or a wedding, but not day to day. I mean, just think of a fire and a big soup kettle.
Yeah.
Moisture is your friend.
Moisture is your friend, and you get to enjoy a lot of the benefits of the veggies in there. They're letting go of some of their nutrients into the soup broth, and you're eating that. So it's a great alternative to what people are doing. So thank you for sharing that. And any last words about ages?
No, I think, now that people are educated, I almost challenge people, go to your computer on your search engine and put in the long word advanced glycation end product. You're going to spend the next month trying to read all that comes up. It's there over and over. And it's what makes me so excited. It's in the medical journals everywhere. It's really, you couldn't possibly read all the science. And it's starting to show up in magazines. Certain dietitians are teaching it. So there's lots of resources. And if you put in low advanced glycation end product vegan recipes, you'll see lots that pop up. Very often featuring a crock pot or the high pressure instant pot. So lots of immediate steps all of us can take. And if you're going to throw a portobello mushroom on the barbecue, actually put it in some kind of container with either vinegar, lemon juice, actually wine, and black beer, any of those that you want. Those marinades are particularly effective at preventing the formation of these chemical compounds. Just neat little tips we can all do.
Yeah, little tips. Yeah, I love it. I love it. So thank you for all of this. This has really been enlightening, and it's been practical. It's giving people practical information they can do to reduce their aging via advanced glycation end products, and also to protect themselves. So I really appreciate that. And I find that when people understand the science, which you are so brilliant at explaining in a simplified way, they get it and they're more likely to take action. So thank you. And we are at the end of our talk about ages.
Thank you.
Thank you for tuning in to Doctor Talks. We hope today's episode has enlightened and inspired you on your path to optimal health. Each day is a new opportunity to make choices that empower your well-being. For more insights and strategies, subscribe to our podcast and visit our website, www.drtalks.com. Stay connected, stay healthy, and join us next time on Doctor Talks, real talks from real doctors on the issues that matter to you most.